ज्योति स्टेनो टाइपिंग कॉलेज में आप सभी का स्वागत है बच्चों। ये ऑफलाइन ऑनलाइन वेबसाइट स्टूडेंट्स की क्लास है। डिक्टेशन स्टार्ट आफ्टर 5 सेकेंड। सर, as the honorable minister has just told us, having found that it was not possible to reach the goal set out in Article 45 of the Constitution within the prescribed period, that is the introduction of universal, free and compulsory education for children up to the age of 14 years. It is now thought of being achieved by the next decade, and to achieve this goal of introducing universal, free and compulsory education, the necessary conditions should be created in those places where we think of enforcing this type of education. The previous speaker has pointed certain of the problems. Of course, this bill refers only to the Union Territory of Delhi, but as the Honorable Minister has just told us, he has introduced this bill as a model legislation to the respective states. So, when we take into account the entire situation in the country today, only 60% of the school going children of the age group 6 to 11 are attending primary schools. Again, out of 23 million girls of the school age, only 10 million girls are attending the schools. Even according to the education minister, in order to achieve the object of introducing free and compulsory primary education, we will have to provide in the third 5-year plan for 90 lakhs students more. This is a great task. Here also, sir, I do not complain that the government has not given sufficient attention to this problem. We have considerably increased the number of primary schools, especially the government has increased the number, but we have a lot of ground to cover yet. Sir, the previous speaker has told us that unless we create the necessary conditions to enable the parents to send their children to schools, it will be very difficult to enforce this legislation. Perhaps it might mean imposing some hardship also on the parents, but that not mean that we should not pass this legislation, and perhaps passing this legislation might be an incentive to the government to wake up and realize their responsibility in creating a sufficient number of schools to give proper education to children. Now, as it is today, primary education is left, of course, more and more responsibility is taken by the government, but education is left in the hands of private agencies. In every state, in many places, and in many of the rural areas as well, private agencies are imparted primary education. When government thinks of enforcing free and compulsory primary education, it is the responsibility of the government to provide a sufficient number of institutions, and not only provide sufficient number of institutions, but also enable the students to go to those primary institutions free of charge. I entirely agree with the previous speaker that when we enforce legislation to bring about compulsory education, it is the duty of the government also to see that those children who go to the private institutions will not have to pay high fees. Stop. लिखी गई आउटलाइन जितनी हो सके छोटी रखनी होती है, आउटलाइन जितनी हो सके छोटी रखनी होती है, और पूरा कंसंट्रेट रखते हैं साउंड के साथ, और 2-3 वर्ड जो है पीछे रहते हैं, जिससे मतलब सारे वर्ड्स कवर करते हुए जाएं। साउंड जैसे बोल रही है उसके साथ साथ वर्ड कभी नहीं लिखा जाता। अनसीन के अंदर जब आप लिखोगे तो 2-3 वर्ड्स पीछे रहेंगे, ठीक है, पहले से माइंड रहता है। जो वर्ड नहीं आता उसको छोड़ के चलना, अगला बनाना है। जो वर्ड साथ में नहीं आया बाद में बनाना है। इसको पढ़िए फटाफट, फिर इसको टाइप करेंगे। इस क्लास में इतना बच्चों। नमस्कार बच्चों।